very first interview of the evening. We will invite our friends. Let us invite Mancini. They are the makers of a short film entitled To Be. Hello, Jonah.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm very good. How are you, sir?
Everything is real good.
Okay, so we are going to ask your colleagues from your film to join us as well. In recent iterations of Instagram, we're allowed to have more than one person at once as part of our interviews. So we're able to have multiple members of your team join us. We'll ask Spencer to join us, and once he's on, hello, Spencer.
Hi, how you guys doing?
Not too bad. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having us on here.
All right, and we'll try to get our final member of your team, and that's Matthew Kyle Levine. Okay, and as we're waiting for Matthew to join us, we'll just say hello to the people who are. Matthew.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, good. How are you?
Doing good today, yeah.
All right, so we all hear each other okay?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, fantastic. Okay, so I think Jonah's screen seems to be frozen. So Jonah, I'm going to ask you, if you can, just to close out your feed and try to get back in, because it seems like you're unable to communicate with us right now. If you can send us a note at the bottom. Nope, Jonah's gone. Okay, so we will start the discussion, and Jonah, once he's back in, we'll just add him right back to the discussion. So Spencer and Matthew, what the project that you guys are working on is Jonah's brainchild in a way. This is his film To Be. And we spoke with him about it a few months back at the very beginning of the process of his work on this film. And remind me if I was actually going back and watching our interview on YouTube to go back and catch up on some of the details of the film. So if I remember correctly, To Be, it's a short film that it's basically focused on a couple of scenes, one from Romeo and Juliet and one from Hamlet.
Yeah.
And it is connecting the love relationships between those two films, or those two plays. Is that correct?
Sure, yeah, exactly. They're kind of like an act one, act two. We start with Hamlet and then we transition to Romeo and Juliet, and we sort of find the parallels between those two as the film goes on.
Okay, all right. Now, before we get any further, Spencer, I want to send some love your way. You have someone in the audience saying, "Spencer, I'm your biggest fan."
Hi, Elizabeth. That's really sweet. I'm your biggest fan.
Okay. All right. So guys, while we're waiting for Jonah to join us again, I'm hoping he can. I hope he doesn't have any significant issues. Tell me, what is happening with the film? Is the film completed? Where are we in the process of making this production?
So it's been a long time coming, a lot of planning, but now finally all the shooting has been done. A rough edit has been completed, and a trailer is actually up now that I think you can view. That's what I heard from Jonah anyway. So
Okay.
we're just kind of fine-tuning and like mixing the audio and tweaking the last final edits, and it should be ready to go in a couple weeks, and then I think it's off to festivals from there.
Okay. All right. So as we would say, principal photography is done.
Yeah.
And we're in the editing stage. So Jonah says he's sending me a message. I'm going to see if I can find him in my guest list to ask him to join us once again. I don't see Jonah. If you're out there, if you're hearing me, just maybe close out your Instagram app and try to enter again, because I can't see you on the guest list to be able to bring you back into the program. Okay, so yeah, the principal photography is done. You're in the editing stage. Matthew, how long have you been working on the project? Have you been on it from the beginning, or did you join at some
I
point along
haven't
the
been
way?
on since the beginning. No, I was attached probably around the summer. Jonah happened to watch one of my films that went on to a few festivals, and I'm not sure how he caught wind of it, but he saw it, and then he reached out to me to sort of help along with the process as far as like the cinematography, the editing, and assistant directing goes. So I sort of jumped on, and then from there we kind of got pretty quick into it in the summer, and that was it. So I've only been involved for the last few months, but I got involved the minute filming started.
Okay, all right. So everything that was happening before that was kind of pre-production.
Yeah.
And once the filming began, you were on the team, and you were what is your job description in this film? If I recall from your bio, you are the director, assistant, and the editor. So what exactly do those duties entail?
So it's those two, and then the cinematographer as well. But so mostly, I worked with Spencer and Tate kind of in depth, and then kind of worked on the performances a bit, kind of like got everything that was on the page kind of on screen. And then I kind of oversaw most of the technical aspects as far as working with my sound designer and the shooting and then now the editing as well. So I'm kind of like the technical department, I'd say, for the
Okay.
most part.
Okay. Is it a big crew you guys are working with?
It was a small crew, especially due to COVID precautions. You know, it wasn't we figured it wasn't a good idea to get so many people together. So it was really only the bare essentials. You know, we had still someone, you know, to do makeup, and we had a few PAs, but mostly as far as the technical crew goes, it was me operating camera and lighting, and then my sound designer, Shay Lachine, working on all things that have to do with sound.
Okay.
It was pretty tight crew.
So
Sure.
I remember from the early days of this project, a lot of it was being shot outdoors, and I think that was in the height of the COVID, or at least the planning stages. As you say, you came on before any real shooting began,
Yeah.
but I think a lot of the pre-production, at least the setups that were being done with outdoor spaces. So in the end, did the shooting end up being mostly indoor, mostly outdoor? How did that work in terms of COVID safety?
So it was a complete split. For half of the shooting, we did this park that was somewhere. Spencer, tell me if I'm right. It was like in Yonkers.
I don't remember the park name off the top of my head. It's up in Yonkers. It's this beautiful largest state
Yeah.
that they kind of gave us free reign to go around and film. We got Jonah found this place somehow, and we got some of the most like amazing wide visuals, just beautiful vista of the Hudson River, a little bit up north of Manhattan.
Yeah, it was very classical looking. It really fit the vibe.
So-
There's no vibe of like, you know, no modern kind of thing going on with like ads or anything like that. It was very
A very bucolic kind of space, very
Yeah,
like
right,
idyllic,
exactly.
back to nature kind of.
yeah.
Really ripped right out of a Renaissance painting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then for the other half, we shot in what we were calling the contrast room, which was basically a studio that we used to emulate this sort of dream aesthetic where suddenly we kind of pluck Hamlet and Ophelia and Romeo and Juliet out of the park, and all of a sudden they're in this dark void sort of space. And that we shot indoors. And we did that for one day.
Okay. Okay. Now, Spencer, I think you also came to the project a little bit later. At what point did you come on board with this film?
Yeah, I was at it around, I think probably late May, early June. I got a call from somebody working with Jonah out of the blue. I think they found me just on one of my accounts on Backstage. And but I went in, read for a couple scenes, and Jonah and I got along really well. We kind of fit the image about what he was going for. And from there, we were just kind of like right out the gate. Next couple weeks, we were shooting.
Okay. All right. And I think it's your role is basically your Hamlet and your Romeo.
That's correct.
And I think there was someone else that was attached to the production prior, and I think maybe at some point they exited and you came in. Did the performer who was playing Ophelia/Juliet change also?
Since then I've been attached. I've worked with about two other people who were at first attached with the project. Then Tate, who couldn't be here today, entered the project about a week after I first started working on it.
Okay.
The first two people I worked on, I haven't spoken to since, so I don't really know what happened with that. But
Well,
I think
that's...
Jonah was kind of going for a more specific vision once he like found out how it was going to look. I think there was a broader perspective of like different Hamlets, different Ophelias,
Right.
but he kind of narrowed down the vision to try and make it like, all right, what are we trying to tell with these two characters and the contrasts between Romeo, Hamlet, Ophelia, and Juliet?
Okay. All right. So Spencer, do you come to this film project with a lot of background in Shakespeare behind you, or no?
Yeah. Most of my background is in theater, and a lot of my background actually comes through Shakespeare. I love the text of Shakespeare, so transitioning from my theater background onto film, this is the first time I've ever worked on a film, felt really at home. I was working with text that I liked, that I knew really well, in a circumstance that maybe wasn't as at home for me. So getting to kind of, I felt very lucky to get in that easy transition for me to kind of get into this different medium of film and how to translate those words in a certain circumstance for the film medium.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of the perfect way for you to like dip your toes into it. It's like yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, and from my previous conversations with Jonah, he's just such a passionate filmmaker and director, and it
Hmm.
seems like he really is very hands-on with a very specific vision of how he wants this film to be and what the story he wants to tell.
Absolutely. He
Hmm.
comes from a very theatrical mindset himself. So we kind of were able to incorporate like our love for the theater and our love for dramatic and exaggerated storytelling to kind of approach a similar circumstance with what we were doing in 2B.
Hmm.
Okay, so during the course of this shoot, how long did the shoot actually go once it got started? 2, 3 months?
No, it was 3 days at the end, but I
Oh,
guess it did
wow.
span over. It was technically 3 days, and it spanned over maybe a month or two.
Okay, so
Yeah,
there are only actually maybe 3 shooting days, but
there's only 3 shooting days. Yeah.
all the setup and all the different things that go into that. And that's something that people don't always think about when you see. I mean, it's going to be a short film. It's probably not going to be more than maybe like half an hour or something like that, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's like 15 minutes right now.
15 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So it's a relatively short piece, and you would think that if you're not really looking at what goes into the making of it, you might look at a 15, 20, 25 minute short film and say, well, that couldn't have taken long to make. They probably put that together in a couple of weeks, and it's in reality. It's months and months and months of preparation that go into it.
A lot
Finding
of
your
planning. Yeah.
location, finding your crew, finding your actors, refining what the story you want to tell, and there's so many other things that go into it.
Hmm.
Uh, Matthew, maybe you can fill us in on a couple of things that the people, just average person that looking into it, might not be aware of all the things that went into putting together a production like this.
Yeah, Jonah's a big advocate for collaboration, so he really is into getting people and bringing them in and then having them kind of put their own spin on the project. So I think first Jonah probably took a few months just to conceptualize the whole thing and write it. And then once he brought us in, it became a kind of conversation and a dialogue of what we should then do moving forward. So there was a lot of planning and articulating what we wanted out of it, and then he would kind of take that and implemented into the project. So there was a lot of back and forth as far as that goes. I'm sure people don't really think about it, but there's also just financially a lot of planning that goes into it. You have to kind of think about everyone that you're going to hire and the spaces that you're going to rent out, if that's the case, and the studios you're going to use and all that stuff. So that's a lot there just in the pre-production. And then as far as the shooting goes, in a way, if you have a good enough plan, that all kind of gets banged out pretty quickly if you have like a good shot list. And then
Mm-hmm.
really what is the most laborious process really is kind of the post-production, where now you're working with the film and you kind of have to mold all of this footage that you got into this final product and make sure that it still says what you were kind of aiming for in the beginning.
And I'm sure for 15, 20 minutes of end product, you've shot hours upon hours upon hours of content.
Yeah, you just get so many takes because you want to get it right, and you also want to experiment with, I'm sure, Spencer, you remember we would go over certain monologues and we'd go, okay, let's do it with, the skull, like classic Shakespeare, where Romeo's speaking to the skull, and then let's do an entire take without the skull, and then let's do
Hmm.
one where you're standing and one where you're sitting, and there's definitely just so much content that has to be gotten just to make sure that when you're in the editing room, you don't kind of, beat yourself up going, oh, I wish we got this.
Absolutely. And that was also so liberating for me because I feel like I got to have so many different interpretations that now like Matt can go into the editing room and it's like, all right, we can sculpt like this painting based on like what works best. Like if we take this shot with
Yeah.
this shot and combine like this kind of mood, we've got a really great like string, a really great string of moments that
Hmm.
we're able to craft because we got so many different ideas and interpretations just on one shoot day.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right. And in this conflation of the two texts of Hamlet and Romeo and Juliet, what realizations did you make? What did you find that was a through line between the two texts that you had never realized before that came out of this production?
I think the crux of all of Shakespeare's writing in terms of love all comes from a place of passion. And I
Mm.
think that really is what guides all of these characters, especially like Hamlet and Romeo in particular and together. I think you've got Hamlet who's a little older and a little bit more cynical versus Romeo who's young and kind of all over the place and floozy. And you kind of see like what Hamlet was probably very much like Romeo in his
Mm.
youth. very passionate and loving and full of youth and generally like love. And you can kind of see the cynicism that takes over Hamlet's mindset that you kind of witness in this famous "Get thee to a nunnery" sequence.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the two characters have more in common, and they come from a very similar place, at least from Shakespeare's writing perspective, than even I realized at first.
Could it be that if Romeo didn't have his candle snuffed out so soon, so to speak, that he could have become a Hamlet Romeo?
I think so. I think they're both intellectuals. I think their love comes from a very similar type of passion, and I think it kind of guides the what Hamlet kind of becomes.
Mm-hmm.
We know that Ophelia and Hamlet had a beautiful, loving relationship at one point, very similar to what Romeo and Juliet had. But had Romeo and Juliet continued their romance, what would have it looked like? You know,
right.
Maybe it was what Hamlet and Ophelia became.
Right.
Yeah, Jonah said something interesting after watching the final cut. He said that after watching it, he kind of realized that all of Shakespeare's work is really based on this idea of like, what will love make us do? What will it, you know, how will it change us as a person, and how will it make us want to change as a person? And I think in a way, when you watch the two scenes kind of put together like this in this very specific way, it becomes clear that they're way more all from the same piece, as if to say they're all from the same mind of one man.
They're all cut from the same cloth.
Yeah, yeah. You can really feel that with this. It almost kind of feels like they might as well be the same, which is why I think the interesting choice of having it be the same actors for both scenarios really, really works.
Okay. All right. Well, while we've been speaking, Jonah has been messaging me on the side, and unfortunately, he's having some technical issues. He's not able to get back into the conversation, but he's sending you two his love and applause for speaking on the behalf of the production. If people want to check out the teaser to find out what the progress is and where ultimately they're going to be able to see it, where can they go?
Yep. So they can go on Instagram. I think it's like To Be Film, I believe is the handle, and then they'll be able to kind of work their way through the network to get to the trailer through there.
Okay. I'm pretty sure it's To Be Productions, if I recall correctly.
Yeah. I was just going to check that right now. It's To Be Productions. Yep.
Spencer. Right. Okay. To Be Productions. Okay. All right. So you heard it there, folks. You can head over to the Instagram, and we'll at the end of this program, once we save it into our IGTV area, I'll put the links for all this stuff right there, so you can go and click on the handle for To Be Productions, and you can go right over to that page and check out all the content that's coming from them. So Spencer, Matthew, I thank you both for joining us here tonight. Jonah, I thank him for his attempt to join us. I'm sorry he had issues, but congratulations to you all on finishing the principal photography, and good luck with the editing. I look forward to seeing the final results.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having us.
You got it. All the best. Have a good night.
All the best.
Okay, so we will remove our friends from 2B Productions. All right, so if you have any thoughts about what you heard so far from Spencer and Matthew, and for the brief time that he was on, Jonah, you're welcome to send us your thoughts, your comments, your hearts, your thumbs up, whatever you're feeling, send it our way. And the team from 2B Productions, I'm sure they're happy to hear from you and happy to communicate with you about their project. Next up, we will head, that was our film area in the world